My salary is $250,000 a year. After taxes, about 12 grand hits my account every month. My wife's family has 3 younger brothers. When they needed a down payment, they came to me. When they needed to pay for a wedding, they came to me. When their business ventures failed, they still came to me. Over 5 years, I'd shelled out nearly $300,000. The other day, her youngest brother, Cody, came asking for money again. He wanted to open a boba tea shop. The price tag? A cool $75,000. So in front of the entire family, I quit my job. As of today, I'm unemployed. Not a penny to my name. My wife, Chloe, instantly broke down, screaming, "Are you insane? What about the mortgage? What about Leo's tuition?" I leaned back on the sofa and fired up a game on my phone. You're always saying your family is your safety net. Let them support you. Chapter 1. Chloe's shriek was sharp enough to pierce my eardrums. It was a raw, twisted sound, like a rusty knife scraping against every surface in our home. The crystal chandelier in the living room hummed from the vibration, its fractured light dancing across her contorted face. "Ethan, are you even listening to me?" I ignored her. On my phone screen, my character was in the middle of a crucial team fight. Dazzling explosions of light and color flashed in my pupils. My fingers danced across the screen, calm and precise. "Did you hear me? You quit your job. Did you think to ask me first?" She lunged at me like an enraged animal, aiming for the phone in my hands. I shifted my body slightly to the side, easily dodging her clumsy attack. She missed and stumbled, crashing into the arm of the sofa with a dull thud. "Relax," I said, my eyes still glued to the screen. "This round is almost over." My voice dropped. "And so are we." Standing off to the side, her brother Cody, the grown man-child who had just demanded 75 grand for a boba shop, finally saw his opening. He pointed a finger at my face, his own jowly cheeks trembling with indignation. "Dude, what the hell is your problem? You get a little money, and suddenly you're too good for us? My sister was a fool to marry an ungrateful bastard like you." I executed a final ultimate move with my character. The word victory flashed in gold across the screen. Only then did I lift my eyes, looking at him as if he were a buzzing fly. "What money?" I pulled my lips into a cold, humorless smile. "Isn't all my money in the bottomless pits of your family?" Chloe's face turned a deep, blotchy red. Furious, she grabbed her phone, her fingers shaking so badly she could barely dial. The call connected, and her voice immediately shifted into a desperate, world-is-ending sob. "Mom, Ethan's lost his mind. He quit his job. He's trying to ruin us." Her mother's uniquely abrasive voice erupted from the speaker, loud, belligerent, and filled with the kind of combative energy you'd find at a street brawl. "That son of a bitch. He wouldn't dare. Tell him to get over here and get on his knees and apologize right now, or I'll skin him alive." I stood up from the sofa and walked over to Chloe. Her eyes widened in shock as I took the phone from her hand. Then, right in front of her, I pressed the end call button. The world went quiet. But that wasn't enough. I opened her contacts, found Mom, and tapped block. The motion was fluid, as if I'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. Chloe was completely stunned. She stared at me, her mouth hanging open wide enough to fit an egg, but no sound came out. 2 seconds later, the volcano erupted. Arg! She started throwing things. The remote from the coffee table, the pillows from the sofa, the decorative vase by the entryway. The sound of shattering porcelain mingled with her heart-wrenching sobs. "I can't live like this. Ethan, I want a divorce." I didn't give her a second glance. I turned and walked into the bedroom, the sounds of destruction and cursing at my back, my heart a dead, quiet sea. With a definitive click, I locked the door, sealing myself off from the chaos. I walked to the bed, bent down, and reached under the mattress. I pulled out a fully charged burner phone. Powering it on, the screen lit up, reflecting my emotionless face. I opened WhatsApp and found the pinned contact. "Dave." I sent him a message. Phase 1 complete. Chapter 2 the next day. Just as dawn was breaking, I was awakened by a thunderous pounding on the front door. My father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and their 3 precious sons, the whole crew was there. When I opened the door, the 5 of them were blocking the entrance like a human wall, every face etched with righteous indignation. My mother-in-law, her eyes red and puffy as if she'd cried all night, took the lead. The moment she saw me, she plopped right down on our doormat, slapped her thighs, and began to wail. Why is my life so miserable? Why is my daughter's life so hard? Married to a heartless piece of trash like you. Quitting his job just like that. Are you trying to starve our whole family? You've ruined my daughter's happiness. You've ruined my 3 sons' futures. She cried with the dramatic, quavering pitch of a professional mourner. Anyone walking by would have thought there was a funeral in progress. The eldest brother, Kevin, cleared his throat, adopting the air of a paternal figure. Ethan, look, a family is supposed to stick together. You're the most successful one in this family. It's only right that you carry a little more of the weight. The middle brother, Mark, just folded his arms, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. Seriously, man, just be honest. Did you meet someone else? Are you trying to ditch us, your loving family? I yawned, shuffled past them my wrinkled pajamas and slippers, and went straight to the fridge. I pulled out an ice-cold Coke. The cold liquid slid down my throat, extinguishing the last flicker of my annoyance as I drank half the can. The temperature in the living room seemed to plummet. The 5 of them, plus a swollen-eyed Chloe, fixed their gazes on me like 6 searchlights. I felt like an intruder in someone else's family drama, completely ignoring the farce that was masquerading as a mediation. Seeing my couldn't-care-less attitude, Chloe's tears started flowing again, a perfect accompaniment to her mother's wailing. I'm so unlucky, she lamented. How did I end up married to a man with no sense of responsibility? I finished the last of the Coke and tossed the empty can perfectly into the recycling bin. Then I turned to them, a brilliant smile spreading across my face. Well, since you're all here, this is perfect timing. I have an announcement to make. I clear my throat. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried to every corner of the room. As of today, I'm officially checking out. I have no intention of ever working again. I'll just be here, playing video games, watching TV. Basically, I'm going to be a stay-at-home husband. From now on, all household expenses will be the responsibility of Chloe and her amazing, supportive family. A dead silence fell over the room. A few seconds later, my father-in-law, trembling with rage, slammed his hand on the coffee table. The sound echoed in the stillness. You have no shame. I spread my hands, my face a mask of innocence. Does shame pay the bills? I'm a proud member of the unemployed. Can't be too proud, you might starve. I looked at their furious, red faces and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I decided to pour a little more fuel on the fire. Oh, and by the way, just a friendly reminder. Next month's mortgage payment is $6,000. It's due on the 15th. So, are you guys going to chip in, or what's the plan? Because if the bank forecloses on this place, we'll all be sleeping on the street. The pressure, like a ball, had been gently but firmly kicked back into their court. Chapter 3, Chloe must have thought that controlling the money meant she had me by the throat. The day after the failed family intervention, she made her move. She confiscated every debit card, every credit card, and even the few $100s in cash I had in my wallet. She locked it all in a safe, keeping the key on her person, a smug look of triumph on her face. Ethan, let me make this clear. I'm in charge of this house now. Let's see how long you last without any money. Don't come crying to me, begging me to let you go back to work. I found her petty power trip amusing. Without a word, I went back to the bedroom, opened my laptop, put on my headphones, and dove back into my game. For 3 straight days, I didn't leave the house. When I got hungry, I ordered food. When the delivery driver arrived, I just shout through the door, "Just leave it there. My wife will pay for it." At first, Chloe stood her ground and refused to pay. But delivery drivers can be persistent. He stood in the hallway arguing with her, his voice getting louder and louder. One demanding money, the other refusing. Our hallway started to sound like an open-air market. Doors creaked open down the hall as our neighbors peeked out, their eyes wide with curiosity. Finally, Chloe's pride couldn't take it anymore. Her face a mask of fury, she paid for the food. After the 3rd time, she got wise and decided to cut off my food supply entirely. On the 4th day, the delivery guy called my phone directly. "Sir, your wife says she's not home and can't pay. About this order." "Hang on." I hung up and walked out of the bedroom. Chloe was on the sofa with a face mask on, and she snorted triumphantly when she saw me. I ignored her and walked straight to her walk-in closet. A moment later, I emerged holding a bright orange box. The mask on Chloe's face nearly cracked. She shot up from the sofa. "Ethan, what are you doing? Why do you have my bag?" It was the Hermes bag I had gritted my teeth and bought for her birthday last year. It cost over $10,000 and was her ultimate symbol of status and vanity. Right in front of her, I took out my phone and snapped several pictures of the brand new bag, which she'd never even had the courage to take outside. Then, I expertly opened the RealReal app and started creating a new listing. "You're crazy. Don't you dare." She flew at me like a feral animal protecting its kill, trying to snatch the bag away. I sidestepped her easily, holding the bag high above her head. My voice was ice. "One bag for 1 month of living expenses. It's a fair trade. Or, you could call your precious baby brother right now and tell him to wire over the 75 grand he wants for his boba shop. The second the money hits my account, not only will I not sell this, I'll buy you another one." She froze, trembling with a rage she couldn't release. She was utterly speechless. Within minutes, a buyer on the app contacted me, arranging for a pickup in half an hour. 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Chloe watched, horrified, as I completed the transaction with a courier in white gloves. Cash for goods. Her eyes looked like they wanted to devour me whole. The sale was complete. A notification popped up on my phone. $8,500 deposited. Right in front of her, I opened a food delivery app again. Lobster thermidor, king crab legs, a dozen oysters. I ordered the most extravagant seafood feast I could find. When I paid, I made sure to add a generous $20 tip for the driver who had waited outside and argued with her. In the notes, I typed, "For the driver who had to argue for his pay." After completing the order, I turned the phone screen towards Chloe, making sure she could read every single word. She swayed on her feet, her face ashen. She had to grab the wall to keep from collapsing. Sometimes twisting the knife is far more effective than a physical blow. Chapter 4: When moral blackmail and financial blockades both failed, Chloe and her mother cooked up a truly venomous plan. They turned their sights on my 6-year-old son, Leo. I came out of the bedroom after a gaming session to find Leo crying on the sofa. Chloe and her mother were flanking him, one on each side, engaged in a vivid brainwashing session. "Leo, sweetie, don't cry," my mother-in-law said, wiping his tears with a rough hand. "Your daddy isn't a good daddy. He's lazy. He doesn't want to work, so his boss fired him." Chloe fanned the flames, her voice thick with fake tears. "Now he won't have any money. We can't buy you any more Legos, and you can't go to your piano lessons anymore. It's all Daddy's fault. He doesn't want us anymore." The child was terrified by their coordinated performance and started crying even harder. He saw me, slid off the sofa, and stumbled over, his little face streaked with tears. "Daddy, why don't you work? My teacher says people who don't work aren't good." In that instant, I felt an invisible hand clench around my heart. A cold, murderous rage shot up from my chest and into my head. For the first time, I dropped the sarcastic, detached persona. The look in my eyes must have been terrifying. I knelt and pulled my son into a tight hug. His small body was still trembling with sobs. I spoke to him in the gentlest, firmest voice I could muster. "Leo, don't listen to them. They're not telling the truth. Daddy didn't get fired. Daddy just needs to take a break for a little while. I love you, and I will never, ever leave you." After comforting my son, I slowly stood up, my gaze sweeping over the panicked faces of Chloe and her mother. I pulled my phone from my pocket and pressed play. A crystal-clear audio recording began to play. It was their entire conversation, every word they had used to manipulate my son and slander me. "That's right, just tell him that. Say Daddy is lazy, he got fired, and now there's no money for toys. Make him resent his father, make him beg his father to go back to work." The color drained from their faces, shifting from red to white to a deathly gray. I walked up to Chloe, my voice low and menacing, a warning from the depths. "Our problems are our problems. We can fight all we want, but you will not drag our son into this." That is my line. My eyes were like two sharp knives, stabbing straight into hers. If there is a next time, you will never see him again. I turned away from them without another word, pulled out my other phone, and dialed my father. "Dad, can you and Mom come over tomorrow? I need you to take Leo for a while." Chloe, as if snapping out of a trance, shrieked, trying to stop me. "Ethan, you can't take my son away from me." I turned back, pinning her with that ice-cold glare. All her protests died in her throat. She froze where she stood, not daring to move another inch. Chapter 5. When gentle persuasion fails, you turn to force. Chloe's simple-minded youngest brother, Cody, after being repeatedly shut down, finally resorted to his last pathetic trick. He got a couple of his buddies to block my front door. One guy had a full sleeve tattoo. The other had a shaved head and a face full of angry muscle. They were clearly not the debating type. They leaned against the doorframe, cigarettes dangling from their lips, and gave me a threatening once-over. "Heard you've been acting like a real tough guy lately," Sleeve Tattoo said, blowing a cloud of smoke in my face. "My boy Cody here says you need to get your ass back to work and make some money. Don't be a damn fool." I remained calmly seated on the living room sofa, one leg crossed over the other. I was holding my phone. The screen was dark, but a small red light on the side was blinking steadily. Video recording on. Seeing that I was unfazed, Cody felt he was losing face in front of his friends. He stormed toward me, his face red with anger. "Ethan, are you freaking deaf?" He shoved me hard. I went with the momentum, throwing myself backward with theatrical flair. My back accidentally slammed into the glass coffee table. Thump! I let out a blood-curdling scream worthy of an opera singer. "Help! I'm being robbed. They're trying to kill me." I clutched my forehead, and bright red liquid gushed from between my fingers. It was a packet of ketchup I'd picked up at the grocery store yesterday. Cody and his two friends were dumbstruck. They had probably never encountered this level of shameless theatrics before. I didn't give them time to react. I grabbed my other phone off the table and, with lightning speed, dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? Help! Someone's broken into my house. They're robbing me. They hit me. I yelled, my voice filled with panic and weakness. I'm bleeding everywhere. I think I'm going to pass out. The address is... I deserve an Oscar for that performance. The police arrived quickly. When they took in the grisly scene, me unconscious on the floor with a bloody forehead and three menacing-looking thugs standing over me, they immediately took control. Nobody move. Hands up. Get on the ground. Cody and his friends were speechless. The video on my phone only showed them shoving me, followed by my dramatic fall and scream. The audio and video combined to create a perfect, damning chain of evidence. In the end, Cody and his two cronies were politely invited downtown for a little chat. Chloe and her mother got the call and rushed to the police station. It took a lot of groveling apologies and several $1,000s to cover my medical bills and emotional distress before the police finally let them go. After that little episode, Cody finally learned his lesson. When he looked at me now, there was a new emotion mixed in with the hatred, fear, fighting fire with fire, countering shamelessness with shamelessness. The results were spectacular. Chapter 6. Chloe's family, like a toothless tiger, finally quieted down. But they obviously weren't ready to admit defeat. After nearly a month of failed tactics, they decided to play their trump card, the money in our joint savings account. I had opened that account before we were married. I always kept a healthy emergency fund in it, just in case. After we got married, in a foolish gesture of trust, I added Chloe's name to it. Looking back, it was an incredibly stupid move. That afternoon, Chloe left the house with the joint bank card in her hand, a strut of confidence in her step. She probably thought that once she had that money, she would regain control of the entire situation. An hour later, my phone rang. It was her. Her voice was shrill, laced with pure, unadulterated rage. "Ethan, what did you do to the card? The pin isn't working." I was lying in bed, slowly turning the page of a book. "Oh, that card," I said, my tone casual, as if discussing the weather. "I was out getting groceries yesterday and decided the old pin felt unlucky. So I changed it." "You tried it 3 times? It's probably locked then. You'll have to go to the bank tomorrow to sort it out." I heard a scream on the other end, followed by heavy, ragged breathing. She hung up and rushed home. When she stormed through the door, she found me packing a backpack. A few changes of clothes, toiletries, my laptop. She paused, taking in the scene, and then a cold, triumphant smile spread across her face. "What's this? Can't take it anymore? Running away from home? I told you, you're nothing without me. Just admit you were wrong, go back to work, and this will all be over." I ignored her tirade. I zipped up the backpack and swung it over my shoulder. I walked right up to her, looking at the face that was now twisted with smug satisfaction. You're always saying your family is your greatest strength, your safety net, so you can have the house. You and your strong, supportive family can live here together. With that, I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, and turned the screen towards her. It showed the transaction history of our joint account. 1 week ago, a single transfer of $75,000 was made out of the account. The current balance was displayed in big, bold numbers, $0. Chloe's eyes were glued to that zero, her pupils dilating in shock. The look of triumph on her face froze, then shattered. It was replaced by shock, then panic, then utter disbelief. She finally understood. My month of checking out wasn't an act of desperation. It was a carefully laid trap. I looked at her face, now as white as a sheet, and for the first time, I gave her a cold, almost cruel smile. The game is just getting started. Chapter 7, I moved out of that suffocating house. My new place was a quiet condo that my friend Dave had ready for me. It wasn't large, but it was peaceful. I wasn't running away, and I certainly wasn't homeless. I had simply changed my office location. The whole quitting my job story was an act from the very beginning. An elaborate play I had staged with my company's HR department and my direct supervisor, all for the benefit of Chloe and her family. I hadn't quit. I had accepted an internal promotion. I was being transferred to a newly formed core project team as the technical director. My salary had even increased by 20%. My work arrangement was also more flexible, allowing me to work remotely most of the time. The extended leave was simply to give me enough time to deal with the cancer in my family life. When Chloe discovered the joint account had been emptied, she lost her mind. She tried every possible way to contact me, but I had blocked her on all channels. She finally got a hold of one of my old colleagues and, after some probing, found out about my promotion. In that moment, her entire world collapsed. She rushed to Dave's condo building and stood outside like a madwoman, calling my phone over and over again. I stood at my window, looking down at her tiny, frantic figure on the street below, my face a blank mask. When I didn't answer her calls, she started bombarding my burner phone with messages. At first, they were filled with meek apologies and pleas for forgiveness. Honey, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please come back, okay? It was all my mom's idea. I only care about you and Leo. When I didn't respond, her true colors bled through. The apologies turned to curses, the pleas to threats. Ethan, you bastard. You set me up. If you dare to divorce me, I'll take Leo and jump off this building. I looked at her hysterical messages with a profound sense of detachment. I calmly took a screenshot of every single one and saved it. These were the knives she was handing me, the ones I would use to cut her out of my life for good. When my in-laws learned the truth, they did a complete 180. One day, they were calling me a coward. The next, they were showing up at my parents' front door with armfuls of expensive gifts. They were hoping to use my parents to persuade me to come back. My dad chased them off the property with a broom. His exact words were, "We support our son's decisions, no matter what. Get lost, you bloodsuckers, and stay away from him." For the first time, Chloe and her family felt a genuine sense of panic. The golden goose they relied on hadn't disappeared. It had grown legs, run away, and was now coming back to settle the score. Chapter 8. A week after I moved out, I reached out to Chloe to meet. We met at a quiet local coffee shop. When she answered my call, her voice was filled with a surprise she couldn't contain. She must have thought I'd softened, that there was still a chance to salvage things. She arrived wearing impeccable makeup and a new dress, trying to recapture the look she had when we were first in love. But I was no longer the fool blinded by affection. She sat down across from me, about to start with some sentimental words. I didn't give her the chance. I pulled something out of my bag and placed it on the table between us. It was a thick, professionally bound document. The cover read, in bold black letters, 5-year family financial expenditure report. I pushed it toward her and opened it to the first page. Year 1 of marriage. March, your mother's birthday. Zelle transfer, $500. May, your brother Kevin wants to take a real estate course. Bank transfer, $800. September, your brother Mark needs a new iPhone. Venmo, $1,000. I read each entry aloud, my voice calm and steady. It wasn't loud, But in the quiet coffee shop, each word landed like a hammer blow on Chloe's heart. Her face grew paler with every number I recited. 5 years, 60 months. From a few $100s for spending money to thousands in gifts, all the way to tens of thousands for down payments, wedding costs, and bailouts for failed business ideas. I even had copies of bank statements and credit card bills. They clearly documented every time she had secretly used my supplementary card to buy her brother's designer sneakers or to book her mother a luxury European tour. Grand total, $312,750. I read the final number and closed the thick, dictionary-like ledger. The figure was far beyond what even she remembered. She stared at the report as if it were some kind of monster, her hands and feet turning to ice. I looked at her, my eyes devoid of anger, filled only with a bone-deep exhaustion. Chloe, every penny I've ever earned came from late nights at the office, from coding until my eyes burned. It didn't just fall from the sky. And now, I'm done being your family's personal ATM. With that, I pulled another document from my bag and pushed it across the table. White paper, black ink, perfectly clear. Divorce papers. She stared at the words, her lips moving but unable to form a sound. That ledger was the final straw that broke the back of all her hopes. Chapter 9. Naturally, Chloe refused to sign. She cried, said she was wrong, swore she would change, and begged me for another chance. My mother-in-law, hearing the news, stormed over to my parents' house and threw herself on the floor, vowing that as long as she was breathing, we would never get divorced. I ignored it all. I hired a lawyer, sent an official legal notice, and prepared to take the matter to court. Seeing that her theatrics were having no effect, my mother-in-law, in a desperate, last-ditch effort to keep her golden goose, revealed a shocking secret. She gathered Chloe and her 2 older sons and, in front of all of them, tearfully confessed the truth. Chloe's most beloved brother, Cody, the one who wanted $75,000 for a boba shop, was not her biological brother. He was adopted 20-something years ago from a relative in their old hometown. The news hit the Davis family like a bomb. It wasn't just me. Chloe and her 2 biological brothers were utterly floored. My mother-in-law, through a torrent of tears and snot, explained that she had always felt she owed her adopted son, that she hadn't given him a proper start in life, and that's why she had spoiled him rotten for all these years. She gave him the best of everything, doted on him as if he were the most precious thing in the world. And the compensation for her guilt, of course, was endlessly extracted from me, the gullible son-in-law. She thought this sob story would win her sympathy, would make me soften my stance. She was wrong. Instead of being a bonding agent, the secret became the final blow that shattered the dysfunctional family. The 2 older brothers exploded. "Mom, what are you saying? Cody's adopted. So, for all these years, you've been playing favorites, giving the best of everything to an outsider? Or we chopped liver? No wonder. You only gave me $5,000 for my wedding, but you forced Ethan to cough up $20,000 for his. My business was about to go under, and you didn't lift a finger, but he wants to open a stupid boba shop, and you're willing to drive my sister's husband to the edge." The family imploded. The 2 biological sons and the mother who had shown a lifetime of favoritism erupted into a vicious argument, dredging up old resentments and flinging accusations at each other. Chloe was numb. She couldn't accept that the brother she had adored for over 2 decades shared no blood with her. And she had been nothing but a tool, a sacrifice her mother made to compensate her adopted son. I stood to the side, a cold spectator to the family meltdown fueled by greed and selfishness. It was all so pathetic, so tragically ironic. A family built on a foundation of lies and entitlement had only one possible fate: total collapse. Chapter 10. On the day of our court-ordered mediation, Chloe showed up with a lawyer of her own. Her demands were simple. She wanted to split our $1.1 million house down the middle, half of all the money in my accounts, full custody of our son, and for me to pay a substantial amount in child support. Her calculations were ambitious. Unfortunately for her, she was facing a man who had been preparing for this day for 5 years. My lawyers systematically presented our evidence to the judge and the mediator. First was the purchase agreement for the house and my personal bank statements. They proved that the entire $300,000 down payment came from my own premarital assets. Under Washington state law, That portion was my separate property. The mortgage payments we made during the marriage were community property and could be divided, but that would also mean Chloe was responsible for her half of the debt. Second was the thick ledger, the one detailing the $312,750 in gifts. My lawyer argued that this money was transferred by Chloe to her family without my knowledge or under duress. This constituted a malicious transfer and misuse of community property. In the division of assets, this amount should be deducted entirely from her share. Third was the collection of audio recordings and text message screenshots. This included the recording of Chloe and her mother trying to turn our son against me, the video of Cody and his friends threatening me at my home, and the screenshots of Chloe's abusive and threatening messages after my unemployment. This body of evidence clearly demonstrated that the environment provided by Chloe's family was extremely detrimental to a child's well-being. Chloe's lawyer was completely outmatched, beaten back by every piece of our well-prepared, multi-pronged attack. He had no counterarguments. The judge's expression grew more and more serious. He explicitly informed Chloe that her malicious transfer of community assets would put her at a severe disadvantage in the final ruling. The color drained from Chloe's face. She was finally realizing that her so-called safety net, my money, could not be freely disposed of under the cold, hard logic of the law. She still tried to fight for custody, tearfully accusing me of neglecting our child. In response, my lawyer produced another file. It was a detailed 10-year educational fund I had established for Leo, a comprehensive growth plan, and a collection of photos showing me reading with him, playing with him, and being an active part of his daily life. In stark contrast, when the judge asked Chloe about her future plans for the child, she stammered for a moment before managing a single, weak sentence. My mom and my brother can help take care of him. The difference was night and day. In that moment, Chloe lost all ground in the courtroom. Her family, her supposed safety net, was worth absolutely nothing in the face of reality and the law. Chapter 11, mediation failed. In the days waiting for the final court date, Chloe's world fell apart. She tried to go back to her family, looking for one last shred of comfort and support. But she was met with cold, resentful faces. With the secret of the adopted son out in the open, her parents' house was in chaos. The two biological brothers were in a full-blown war with their mother over her favoritism and the future division of their parents' assets. When they saw Chloe, there was no sympathy, only a barrage of accusations. "You've got some nerve showing your face here. You couldn't even hold on to your man. Now you've cut off our whole family's income stream. We told you to get more money out of him when you had the chance. Now look at you, you're not getting a dime. You're useless." Her beloved adopted brother, Cody, whose boba shop dream had evaporated into thin air, was also full of resentment. He blamed Chloe and her divorce for ruining his chance to make it big. The family of leeches, once tightly bound together by the nutrients they sucked from me, saw their standard of living plummet after their host was gone. Internal conflicts erupted. Kevin, the eldest, had lost all the money he'd scammed from me in a bad investment and was now being hounded by creditors. Mark, the middle brother, who had never held a real job, was forced to take a grueling manual labor position. He came home every day exhausted and miserable, complaining to anyone who would listen. Their mother spent her days weeping, surrounded by the ruins of the family she had built on lies, watching them tear each other apart. And Chloe, the daughter who had once been praised and paraded as the family's hero and cash cow, was now the family traitor. Her family had turned on her. For the first time in her life, she tasted what it truly meant to be alone. She finally, painfully understood. Her family was never her safety net. They were a heavy chain that had bound her, drained her, and ultimately discarded her. And she, with her own two hands, had thrown away the one person who had the power, and once the desire, to help her break free. Chapter 12, the final judgment, came down. There were no surprises. The house, as my premarital property, was awarded solely to me. I was required to compensate Chloe for her share of the equity gained during the marriage, a one-time payment of $50,000. Custody of our son was awarded unequivocally to me. Chloe was ordered to pay a symbolic $200 a month in child support. As for the $312,750 she had given her family, The court deemed it a gross misuse of community property. After deducting that amount, her share of our remaining marital assets was next to nothing. After the divorce, Chloe, with no marketable skills and now viewed as a burden by her own family, had to rent a small, dark room in a rundown part of the city. She scraped by working odd jobs. Occasionally, she would see updates from my life on social media. I took our son, Leo, to the beach, to the science museum, to the Disneyland he had always dreamed of visiting. In the pictures, Leo's smile was as bright as the sun, and I, too, had shed the exhaustion and gloom of the past 5 years. I looked like my old self again. In fact, I was more confident, more at ease than ever before. My career was flourishing, no longer shackled by the anxiety of feeding a black hole of debt. All my income could now be invested in myself and in building a better life for my son. One weekend, while Chloe was sifting through a clearance rack at a department store, she saw me across the crowded floor. I was holding Leo's hand, waiting in line for a table at an upscale restaurant. Standing next to me was a woman with a gentle, elegant demeanor. The woman knelt, kindly adjusting the collar on Leo's shirt. The three of us stood together, a picture of harmony that was painful for Chloe to watch. Chloe instinctively ducked behind a clothing rack, the stinging sight bringing tears to her eyes. She knew that spot next to me, next to our son, was once hers, and she knew that she, and she alone, had destroyed it all. My new life was built on the ashes of our rotten marriage, and my future without her in it was nothing but blue skies.